Welcome back to The Explainer. So today we're jumping right into something you probably see literally every single day, but might never actually think about. We are unpacking the hidden, surprisingly intentional world of roadside landscaping. We're going to be pulling some really fascinating insights from a writer named Ang, who documented their observations in a piece called Notes on Gardening. Because, what just looks like some random greenery thrown on the side of the road is actually a highly curated, intensely managed environment. And we're going to break down exactly how the whole shebang works.
So, picture your daily drive for a second. Have you ever really looked at the roadside landscaping on your commute? I mean, it's so easy for us to just assume it's nature doing its thing on the edge of the asphalt, right? But Ang's notes completely shatter that illusion. As you'll see, there is an entire hidden narrative of design, struggle, and just immense physical effort happening right outside your car window.
Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand what's happening out there on the asphalt, Ang didn't just casually glance out the window while driving by. No, they actually went on dedicated field trips. We're talking visits to plant nurseries, gardening centers, and nearby open gardens, specifically to observe typical landscaping work up close. By stepping away from the fast-paced road and examining these controlled environments, Ang was able to decode the exact methods and the common plant species that eventually make their way to our streets. It's kind of like sneaking behind the scenes of a theater production to see how the sets are built before you watch the actual play.
And through those field trips, a massive, undeniable pattern emerged. When you look at the standard approach to this kind of landscaping, there is one overwhelming trend, and that is combining contrasting colors. These landscapers aren't just tossing seeds into the dirt and crossing their fingers. Actually, scratch that, it's more like they're making highly calculated, incredibly intentional design choices. They are actively hunting for plants that will aggressively pop against one another when you put them side by side. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what the designers are going for. Ang specifically points out that this whole trend is all about combining two plant species with contrasting colors to achieve specific effects. It's a totally deliberate visual strategy. Think about it. Think about the speed at which we drive past these spaces. If everything was just one uniform, boring shade of green, it would literally all blur together into nothing. By forcing these stark, clashing colors together, landscapers guarantee a visual impact that catches your eye, even if you're flying by at 40 miles per hour. It is a completely manufactured aesthetic designed purely for an audience in motion.
But here is where the story gets really fascinating, because that beautiful high contrast look, it definitely doesn't happen naturally, and it for sure does not survive on its own. Ang observed that these setups demand a staggering amount of unseen labor. We are talking about the gritty reality of roadside maintenance. These plants need regular, rigorous pruning. Maintenance crews have to constantly manage the plant growth, and they painstakingly maintain very specific shapes just to ensure one plant doesn't go rogue and completely swallow the other one whole. Without that constant human intervention, the entire visual effect would basically collapse into chaos in just a matter of weeks.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the biological reality behind all this manufactured contrast. Ang noticed that to get these beautiful clashing colors, landscapers are literally forcing together two radically different types of plants. On one side, you have these incredibly hardy survivors that, honestly, could probably grow on the moon if they had to. But right next to them, just to get that perfect pop of color, they plant super fragile species. So you essentially have the absolute high-maintenance divas of the plant world sitting shoulder to shoulder with the toughest, most rugged weeds on the block.
Which brings us to the ultimate, inescapable consequence of this whole system. Some of these plants simply cannot be left alone. If they get little or no maintenance, it's game over. If city budgets dried up tomorrow, or the crews just stopped showing up, that artificial balance would break instantly. Those hardy plants would relentlessly take over, completely choking out the fragile, colorful ones until they just fail and die. It really gives you a profound new appreciation for the constant, invisible human labor required to keep this delicate, high-contrast painting from just blurring into a mess.
So, here is my challenge for you. On your next drive, whether you're commuting or just running to the grocery store, take a closer look at that flash of color out your window. Ask yourself, which of those plants are the rugged survivors and which are the fragile ones, secretly relying on an invisible team to keep them alive? I promise, once you notice this hidden world of contrast and care, your daily drive will never be the same. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and remember to keep your eyes on the road and maybe just a little bit on the roadside.